This tutorial will cover how to create text. Minilase Pro SE uses any Windows TrueType font. Okay, now what this means is that any font that you can use on your Windows system that is installed into the font directory, which is located typically on your C drive under the folder Windows and then Fonts, any TrueType font you install in that directory will show up down here under your font listing. Okay, and you can see on here I've got several fonts on my computer that are listed right now. Okay, to create text, we're simply going to click on this A symbol here, which is draw text. And once we do that, you can see we have a typical text cursor, and I click and it creates a new text item. Now the default is text, and we can now manipulate and change that. So I'm going to come over here to the left, and I'm just going to squeeze this up a little bit by clicking and dragging my object list. And now you can see I've got several items here which I can manipulate to change my text. The first thing I want to do is change what my text says. I can do that simply by highlighting in the box and typing. Now, to make the change active in the screen, you do have to click apply. Now that updates this object over here. It's not a live update. Okay. We can also create paragraph text, so we can create many lines of text. If I go down to the next one and then the following and hit apply, you can see I have now created paragraph text. If I want to change the font, I can simply come here to my font list, and you can see I get a preview of what that'll look like. For example, let's do this Cambria font. Once I change that, I click apply, and now you can see it's changed over here as well. To manipulate the font, alignment, spacing, so on and so forth, I'm going to come here and click this F button. That's going to launch the font box, which is going to allow me to make some other changes. For example, if I want to center the text, I can do so, and now you can see the text is centered. If I want to right justify the text, I can do that as well, and now you can see that text is right justified. If I choose to bold the text, you can see it's now bold, or apply italics. So very similar to any Windows programs like Word, Excel, any of those programs you may use on a regular basis. Now, I can change the orientation of the text as well to go vertical. This is kind of a neat effect. Now you can see it reads from the top down, left to right. And I'll stick with horizontal. And we can also change the character width. So by default, it's at 50% of the character. If I go to 100, for example, you can see the text characters are now larger. Likewise, if I go down, let's say to 25%, I'm shrinking in the width of the characters. So 50% is my default value. Now this tool is important and useful if you wish to squeeze your text in a little bit when you're trying to fit multiple characters within one area. You can squeeze them in a little bit and gain a little bit more room. The angle has to do with the angle of rotation of that text. So if I put it at 50 degrees, you're going to see that it's like a skew effect. Now that's for each individual character. If I go back to 0, it's going to put it back. Character spacing, this is the spacing between my characters. If I do a dramatic change, for example 1 millimeter, and click apply, you can now see that the text is spaced with 1 millimeter spacing. I like 0.5. It gives us a nice bit of spacing without being too extreme. Line spacing is the spacing in between the lines. If I go very dramatic again, 5, you can now see there is extra space in between each line. Just go back to the default of 1. If I take it down to 0, you can see that's going to be the default now of the actual font itself. In here as well, I can also do circular text, but we're going to come back to that in a later tutorial. I'll go ahead and click apply one more time. OK to close it. Now let's discuss how you change the size of the text. This is important to understand. I'm going to move this over to the center. Now you can see here the first area under text, we have the position, which is the X and Y coordinates of this center of the object, which is shown by this little crosshair here near my mouse. And we also have the size. Now this is the overall size of the object. So this is the height from here to here and the width from here all the way over to this point. Now this is important because this is not my individual character size. My individual text size is here. You can see it's shown at 10 millimeter. However, this height is based off the height of the character, okay, plus the spacing for that font set to the next character. So each TrueType font has in itself a space value from one line to the next when creating paragraph text, and that's what this 10 millimeter measurement is. It goes from the top of the T to the start of the next line, which would be the top of the L here for laser, and then again 10 millimeter from the top of the L down to the top of the M. And that's what that height is. So therefore, if we want to have an accurate value for a particular text string, it's important that we do not use the paragraph text feature. And for that, I would just remove those two lines, click apply. Now I have an accurate reading of my text height up here. Now you can see in the Y, which is the height, the vertical plane here, I'm only 6.75 millimeters. Okay. And that doesn't match up with the 10, but again, that's because we're not adding in the spacing below for the next line of text if we were using paragraphs. So the most important thing about getting your text height correct is to make one text box at a time if you have strict requirements. Most customers don't, and the paragraph text will serve them fine, as they can physically line that up on the part and take a look at the sizing and adjust from there. If I do want to change that text, let's say down to 4 millimeter height, you can see my width and the X value changes with that in aspect ratio. If I go to 5, you can see it change again here. And once I click enter on my keyboard, that will update. Now, if I unlock this, I can change just the values in one direction, okay, which is going to change it out of aspect ratio. You can see the width didn't change. And I'll just lock this again. So that's a short overview of creating and manipulating text.